If you like my content, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, all the things. We want to make sure that my videos get exposure, and the best way is to like, comment, and share. Hi everyone. So in today's video, we are going to be discussing the impact of Christopher Columbus, why Christopher Columbus Day falls on the second Monday of every month. This is being recorded near Christopher Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, as some states and some school districts have called it. And so we're going to be unpacking what it means. And there was some news that was recently released on the origins of Christopher Columbus. And so it is pretty remarkable that, the news is coming out and Columbus Day is around the corner, or Indigenous Peoples Day. So every second Monday in October, we hear about Christopher Columbus. Some of us post funny memes about Christopher Columbus. I am one of those people. I have a meme that I post every single year of an Indigenous woman giving the finger to Christopher Columbus, or that's what the meme says. And so it's in humor, and it's also in recognition of the atrocities that Christopher Columbus did when he sailed the New World and discovered land that was already inhabited by people. Okay, so how did we get here? So the first Columbus Day took place on October 12th in 1792 in New York. Then, after a couple of hundreds of years, literally, throughout a couple of hundreds of years, and to ease tensions with Italian migrants, and Italian Americans, the United States named the second Monday of October as Christopher Columbus Day. Originally, it was October 12th, and so they changed it to the second Monday in October. Supposedly, it was because they wanted to give workers a long weekend. And so to give workers a long weekend, they said it was the second Monday of the month. I don't know the American government to be as charitable and kind to its workers, so I'm not sure how true that story is, but that is what one of the stories says. Okay, so with all that being said, who was Christopher Columbus? Columbus was once believed to have been an Italian explorer who sailed under the Spanish flag in 1492, and his goal, as we all know, was to find a new route to Asia. And so by sailing west across the Atlantic, it seems, however, that Columbus was not as good a voyager or navigator as the Spanish crown believed him to be. And so he got lost and did not go to where he was intended to go. Supposedly he wanted to go to India. Those are the stories that we're told as children, right? That he wanted to go to India. And so he didn't make it there ever. And he found the indigenous people. They weren't lost, so he didn't find them, but he saw that there were indigenous people on this land, and he stayed for a long time. And while he stayed, he committed atrocities. His men also committed atrocities. And how do we know that he committed those atrocities and that his men committed those atrocities? Because he left diaries. And in his diaries and journals, he detailed what some of the things they did, what were some of the things they perpetrated against these people that were hospitable to them, to the Spanish, is that Columbus was what we know now anyway, is that Columbus was actually of Sephardic Jewish ancestry. He was not really Italian. Sorry, Italians. Now, the story as it was released by CNN, that's where I read it. I read it this morning. What it says is that they conducted DNA testing on Columbus's remains. They also conducted DNA testing on his son's remains, and the tests were conclusive that Columbus and his son were related. Number one, that proved that it was Columbus, um, or a relative of Columbus. And it also proved that they have Sephardic Jewish ancestry. And so, what the story says is that in Spain, there were there was a community, a rather large community of Sephardic Jews. And Queen Isabel and King Ferdinand, I believe it was Ferdinand, they decided that they were going to make the Muslims and the Jews that lived in Spain convert to Christianity. And if they didn't, they had to leave. They had to leave their land, the land that they lived on. And so a lot of them emigrated from Spain because they did not want to convert. And so it's possible that that is the actual origin of Columbus. It's also possible that Columbus's family left Spain and moved to Italy. It's not disputed that Columbus was actually born in Genoa, in Italy. I believe that that is still the case. Now, with all that being said, though, it does beg the question, because in some parts of the country, this is no longer Columbus Day. This is now called Italian Heritage Day. What does it mean for Italians and Italian Americans if Columbus was not really even Italian? That's a question. So, to some, very few people, I hope, at this point, Columbus's story is a romantic one, right? He was a man on a mission. He was driven by his natural curiosity. He wanted to know what was out there. He wanted to see if he can have more trading to support the Spanish crown and all that. And so it's it's not really true. It is a story of exploration. Some people may think it's a story of courage and curiosity. And again, that wasn't really the reality. And so what ended up happening is that his voyages opened the door to the age of European conquest, rape, and pillaging, and spread colonization and imperialism to land that had inhabitants. So hearing things like, for me personally anyway, hearing things like connecting the old world with the new, frustrates me because the New World had inhabitants that were living here for as much as 30,000 years. So this land was pretty old. The people that lived here had lived here for thousands of years. And so there was nothing new about this land. There was nothing that needed to be discovered. This land had inhabitants. Now, he didn't land in empty land, and saying that he discovered America is offensive to the people that were already living here, the people that died, the people that were murdered, the people that were slaughtered, the people that were raped, literally, and the people that were treated horribly. And we already know what the legacy of the indigenous people is in this country, right? Because although we have lots of indigenous people left, thankfully, we do have indigenous people that don't exist anymore. We have tribes that don't exist anymore. And so, I, for one, I'm proud Puerto Rican, and I have Taino ancestry. And so in me lives the indigenous people of the land where I was born. There are a lot of people where that is not the case. And unfortunately, the reports are that there are no pure Taínos anymore. All that are left of the Taínos are people like me, people that have their blood running through our veins, but our traditions don't exist anymore. And so they exist in the Puerto Rican Spanish. They exist in some of the words that we use, as well as the African languages that migrated by force to Puerto Rico, as part that are make up also part of the lexicon that we speak in Puerto Rico. And so it's really important that we really set the record straight and we call things as they are. And so, Columbus's arrival to every place where he went left an era of colonization, violence, and exploitation. Now, the Columbus's arrival also marked the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade and the forced labor of indigenous people in horribly harsh conditions. So it's hard to see Columbus as a hero. I grew up Catholic, and the Catholic Church, for some reason, venerates Christopher Columbus. And the truth as to why the Catholic Church venerates Christopher Columbus is that Christopher Columbus brought Christianity to a place where Christianity didn't exist. And so to Christians, that was him spreading the good news or the gospel, which was a mandate of being a Christian. The problem is that he did that by force. A lot of people back then did it by force. And so it was a legacy of violence. And so in the United States, again, which is where this is filmed, lots of states have renamed Columbus Day to be Indigenous Peoples Day. A lot of places have renamed Columbus Day to be Indigenous Peoples Day. And so, because it's important that we recognize the power that was robbed from the indigenous people and the power that the indigenous people still have, right? Because we don't want to focus exclusively on the pain. We want to also talk about the amazing contributions and attributes that the indigenous people left. So in my videos, you will start seeing the land acknowledgement in the opening, along with the opening titles. And that is there for a reason. I fully acknowledge that I am residing on land that was stolen from the Lenape people in the state of New Jersey. And so, because it is important for us to recognize the people that live here, and it is important to recognize the beauty that exists in the indigenous people, I am making it a point to acknowledge the land where I reside, acknowledge my ancestry, acknowledge my heritage, and I encourage everyone else to really take a reflective look at our culture, at our ancestry, at our history, and figure out how we can be intentional to undo some of the damage, if not all of the damage that has been done on this Indigenous Peoples Day. That is my ask. That is my call to action for you. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you like my content. I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you so much.